This is a true story, sadly, and it occurred and was written in a period of my life when I was single, which means it involves something that was fun, since I've now recently got engaged, and that's also fun. But the most sort of, no, I'm not criticizing it. It's just a different kind of a thing, and I'm glad I wrote the book I did when I did. But you know, I recently, for example, picked out a save the date card, which was very nice and very fun, and we went with a very nice celadon, so it should all work out. And just as one final note, this essay is intended to be humorous, but if it's not, I wanted to warn you that it's written in Garamond font, which is not lovely to read, but not terrifically funny. Okay. Menage A Faux Pas. My first and only foray into the world of group sex had all the erotic panache of a Three Stooges episode, thanks to a host of factors, not the least of which was my inability to meet certain fondling needs while avoiding any unwanted contact with the other naked man hovering inches above my head. That I had met the couple I was then having sex with less than an hour before didn't help matters much either. As with communism and the launch of New Coke, swinging turns out to be better on paper than it does in practice. It was an autumn not long ago, and I was unemployed. Moreover, I was in the throes of a difficult breakup. Jobless, heartbroken, and in control of far too much free time, I began cruising Craigslist, an addictive internet bulletin board that urbanites use to search for apartments, jobs, and, as I was soon to learn, casual encounters of an endless variety. When this was written, not everybody knew it was sort of first-generation Craigslist. That phrase is now dated. That there were no means by which to authenticate those placing ads seemed unimportant to me on the warm October day when I answered a posting that, in the abbreviated slang of the swing culture, read, "Very good-looking couple seeks males and females for group play." With no girlfriend or pesky job, my calendar was open and my interest was piqued. I sent a note through the website's anonymous email system detailing the reasons I deserved selection. At the time, these included my fine taste in bottled water, which still remains Volvic, mostly because of the bottled ergonomics, and also my advanced knowledge of the plot structures of 80s sitcoms that involve taverns. And waited for their reply. Yet despite this seeming boldness, I'm actually ill-suited for an endeavor of this nature, possessing neither the freedom of spirit nor the ability to live in the Zen moment that the lifestyle requires of those who wish to enjoy it to its fullest, fleshiest extent. In my defense, however, it is worth noting that I've long been a fan of the lonely elegance of prime numbers, with 3 possessing special significance. So, 3. Anyway, math jokes don't always work. And so it was that I fell headlong into the lifestyle. Mark and Tina, the 20-something couple in charge of the orgy, seemed pleasant enough over email, and our correspondence had a crisp, utilitarian tone, as though they were selling me a Victorian roll-top desk or a summer share in the Catskills. As a first step, we traded pictures and began a rolling dialogue. While certain sexual preferences were discussed, most of the exchanges had to do with establishing a common sense of ideology. Were we getting together to have sex, I wondered, or debate the merits of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty? I'm opposed. After an extended series of emails and a face-to-face meeting with Mark, it was determined that I had passed muster. 2 weeks later, we found ourselves at a Mexican restaurant on the Upper West Side, hammering down machine-generated margaritas, but avoiding any food. When you're about to get your freak on, this is just a side note for those of you who might try this, with a group of strangers met via the internet, beverages capable of inspiring hallucinations are preferred. Montezuma's Revenge, on the other hand, is not. And I think this kind of holds true for a lot of different situations, not just this. So this is sort of educational, I suppose. Despite my predate concerns, Tina turned out to be encouragingly cute, the sort of woman you'd expect to have been on the pep squad in high school, and not at all what I imagined an insatiable group sex vixen to be like. A tall brunette with sparkling green eyes, she bore a slight resemblance to Jan Smithers, who played Bailey Quarters, the bookish production assistant on WKRP in Cincinnati. If you remember that show. Mark was good-looking as well, though his style borrowed a little too heavily from what appeared to be a recent Kenneth Cole catalog, right down to the black leather attaché and Chucky loafers. After several rounds, we settled the bill and headed back to his walk-up studio apartment, 3 blocks away. Mark and I didn't get as far as working out a system of hand signals, but when Tina went to the bathroom, we did devise a plan of action. We both agreed that as an overarching premise, the avoidance of any male-on-male contact was of the highest order. Creating well-defined borders seemed a wise strategy, and we pledged to strictly observe an "if you take the top half, I'll take the bottom half" rule of law, with Tina's belly button serving as our Maginot Line. Unfortunately, as with war in politics, the center does not always hold. Upon her return, Tina and Mark started making out, leaving me in the lurch. Memories of being the last boy standing during Stairway to Heaven at a middle school mixer washed over me, and I felt a tad left out. Uncertain as to protocol, I moved in and began rubbing Tina from behind. Her moan seemed an indication that the decision was a good one, though the moment felt more like an Up With People group hug than it did a scene from Ron Jeremy's salad days. Despite her girl-next-door demeanor, Tina was the first to make a move. She began undressing and was soon naked and perched on the edge of the bed. Showing major league dexterity, she began manually manipulating both of us. Mark progressed quickly, but to her disappointment, there was an incomplete response on my part. The stage fright was inspired in no small way by the proximity of the penis to my immediate left. I am engaged, but I just want to assure the ladies that that kind of thing never happens to me on sort of normal one-on-one basis. So. Take a break and have a beer, Mark said, with the encouraging tone of an assistant coach benching a starting point guard off to a slow night. We'll be fine in a few minutes. So there I was, naked and seated on a starter apartment futon, nursing a warm Heineken, watching two strangers have sex. I gotta start setting some more ambitious goals, I thought to myself. And while the voyeurism was exciting at first, I soon grew restless and began wandering around Mark's apartment, examining his bookshelves, men who swing apparently like Tom Clancy in Matchbox 20, and rummaging through the pantry for a snack. I settled on some Cool Ranch Doritos, in keeping with the Tex-Mex theme established earlier in the night. Had there been enough light, I would have thumbed through the issue of Fortune on his kitchenette counter as I waited for them to finish up. But canvassing a younger man's IKEA-heavy apartment was not what I had signed up for. I'm not a quitter, be it learning to play the recorder in 5th grade or trying my hand at group sex. And I was determined to step back aboard the boat. Moving to the starboard side of the bed, I began caressing Tina as Mark worked below deck. Now, there are going to be a lot of sailing metaphors in this next paragraph. I wrote this soon after I had seen the movie Master and Commander. That's what happens. I'm impressionable. Anyway, staying true to our game plan, he exited his post to give me a turn skippering the craft. Again, this is just, it gets bad, I think. But, you know, it's embarrassing when you look back. But I was a young man when I wrote this, so it's perhaps forgivable. My rigging was in ship shape now, and I was it ends soon, don't worry. And I was tacking downwind with authority. Tina seemed to be enjoying herself as well, though it was Mark who complimented my physiology, urging her on with dirty talk that referred to my mast in the third person. Mark's grammatical liberties notwithstanding, I ventured forth, and we achieved an industry standard threesome position. Medium degree of difficulty, but an excellent overall use of the bed space. We had pulled together as a team to resounding resources. I had my sea legs now and was ready to come about. But while my libido was racing, equipment failure forced me to port once again. Yeah, it's embarrassing. But I was trying to avoid kind of literal descriptions, and I thought this was elegant, I suppose. Tina tried several times to hoist my mainsail, but it would not raise upward, despite the intensity of her efforts. I climbed off the bed and began gathering my clothing as Mark and Tina, still naked and aroused, watched. "That was great," I said as I looked for an errant sock. "It was really nice to meet both of you." There was a strange moment of silence before they reciprocated and suggested that we stay in touch. Mark then stood to shake my hand and, I presume, walk me to the door. "Now, please, don't get up on my account," I insisted, waving him down as I focused my gaze on Tina. "I can find the door." I'd seen my share of naked men for the evening, and the formality of a handshake seemed redundant after our recent commingling. The car ride downtown... This is the poignant part. I get a little choked up. The cab ride down... This is when someone should play like a song from like a Barbra Streisand movie. We don't have that. So just imagine, like, some sad song. The cab ride downtown to my apartment took me through the heart of a recent ex-girlfriend's neighborhood, and the voyage served as a poignant reminder of how sharply the loving, non-group sex aspects of that relation stood in counterpoint to the more hedonistic activities that had just taken place. The irony of monogamy from the male perspective is that when you're seriously committed, you're constantly absorbed with the distracting notion that somehow you're missing out, that there are guys out there having exciting, casual sex with random girls gone wild, nearly all of whom are, of course, well-tanned Danish-born flight attendants who insist that we watch televised sports in between bouts of acrobatic lovemaking. And while such temptations do indeed exist, sometimes it takes a failed menage a trois to come to the recognition that, in the heartfelt and prophetic words of Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.